In 2016, Kenya began donkey slaughter. The first slaughterhouse in Naivasha, then another one in Baringo, followed by another one in Turkana, and a final one in Kithioko in Machakos. It looked a lucrative business because then the country was expecting a lot of money for export. Communities were expecting a lot of benefits, from the sale of their donkeys. So in the outset, actually from the promises by the traders and everybody, it looked to be a wonderful thing that is coming. And that's how you find communities in Naivasha embraced it. Of course, there was a bit of tension initially because then donkeys had never been slaughtered in some of these areas. And Kenya really is probably one community that eats donkeys and on very rare conditions in their occasions and that sort of a thing. So this massive slaughter of this animal was creating a bit of jitters. But then with the promises that were coming, we are going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things in this village, communities embraced it. Fast forward, in a couple of months into the slaughter, communities began complaining. Communities began complaining, saying they are losing donkeys to thieves at night. A woman, and you know the way donkeys are used in Kenya, is the ladies mainly actually who use the donkeys because then is to get water from the river, is to get wares from the market or into the market and that sort of a thing. So the donkey really is abandoned a lot in the household chores. And the young men also in urban, peri-urban areas to transport sand, to get people watu ambao wanahama nyumba, that sort of a thing. And so complaints began coming, and I remember by 2018, Brook and its partner offices were reporting on average per day 150 cases of theft of donkeys. Quickly then, communities began finding, a woman wakes up in the morning, she had left her donkey outside, she finds it's not there, following up probably a few yards into the bush, the donkey is killed, the skin is removed, and the carcass is left there. And so questions began emerging. Why the skin? Following it up, then it was discovered actually the skin is a very lucrative product in the Eastern countries, Asian countries, especially in China. Lucrative products because then the skin is boiled into a gelatin that produces something called a jiao that is used to make lots of Chinese medicine products, from skincare products to products, candies, that you can chew, and they are believed probably to improve libido, to, add the number of years that you live. Local Chinese medicine is not scientifically proven. It is the same thing that pushes the trade in rhino horn. Everybody in the areas where they buy rhino horn will tell you, this is a wonderful product, blah, blah, blah. It heals 1, 2, 3, 4 things. These are vets. They will tell you rhino horn is keratin. Keratin is your nail. That's the product that's made that makes the rhino horn. But then when you take a product into local medicine thrives on belief, doesn't thrive on science. And so they can declare anything, like this phone or this pen can heal, And that is where this challenge now began. And so in 2019, fast forward, Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Organization did a research. And they told us in Kenya, we are slaughtering 5 donkeys and only 1 is being born. So for every 5 donkeys that were being slaughtered in Kenya then, only 1 was being born. And so they said, in that case, quickly, in 3 to 5 years, we'll be losing the whole population of our donkeys in the country if we don't stop. And so then the Minister for Agriculture, C.S. Munya, in 2020, April 2020, gave a gazette notice and banned the trade. Of course, there's been quite a bit of water under the bridge from then, but the status as of now is that all the 4 slaughterhouses remain closed. But it's not just Kenya that has closed slaughterhouses. Africa had many countries, actually up to 18 or 19 countries that were doing the slaughter. But then in the course of time, you're finding countries like Burkina Faso, Niger, you're finding even our neighbors here like Tanzania, Ivory Coast, all of them have closed the slaughter. And the closure is this. When our minister was closing the slaughter, he said, one, we don't have the numbers of the donkeys. And so the few numbers that we had got slaughtered, and now the slaughter is beginning to take the donkeys that wake up every day and help households. A donkey that a woman was using for her household chores is now going into slaughter and pushing that woman now into poverty. And so that's why it was said, we actually don't have the numbers. We have to know how we show up the numbers for us really to get to that trade. But then also quite a few other issues were raised on the way the slaughter was going. Because then Carol report said, when you're slaughtering an animal, you need to stun it. But they said most of the slaughterhouses were not doing stunning. They said actually up to 30% of the donkeys that were being slaughtered were pregnant. So then you find a trade that is almost finishing a population. When you slaughter mothers that are pregnant, are you then thinking about tomorrow in terms of how this trade will really continue? And so then the question of what is the status in terms of the illegal now, what my friend here was asking. There are undercurrents today that there is illegal slaughter. We have heard voices from Turkana with communities saying their donkeys are disappearing slowly. We have heard communities in Lodwar saying they are seeing motorbikes carrying donkey skin and selling to people who they purport to be the former owners of the slaughterhouse that is there. So there are reports around that. These reports have already gone to the police because then in Kenya, as of now, officially, we are not doing slaughter. And so the question is, these skins probably that are being smuggled from outside the country or from within the country, and donkeys are being slaughtered, donkeys serve in very hard situations and conditions out in the bushes there. 1 or 2 of them can disappear and get slaughtered, and a skin finds its way into a market. How are these skins being exported? Are they going through our port of Mombasa for export? These are some of the questions that we may begin to ask, because then the government position as of now is that there is no official slaughter of donkeys in Kenya. So really, can the government look into the matter? The actually communities are reporting a bit of losses, and they are reporting like there is, surface slaughter. Then we may need the security agencies really to look into that, so that then communities are not losing this resource again, while the government of Kenya's position is actually the official slaughter is not there. And so I think then probably mentioning something about the protection of these animals down at the community level, we have had a lot of talks, and even communities have put in quite a bit of structure. Today, Kenya has the donkey owners coming together, and they have formed the Alliance of Donkey Owners in Kenya, which consists of hundreds of owners of donkeys in Kenya. This is a forum that we are finding very important, because then the owners of the donkeys are speaking to one another and saying, how do we protect this resource? So some of them have actually come up with very nice, good ways of actually protecting their donkeys at their own villages, housing them better, the people who are leaving their donkeys loose on the road and things like that, those owners actually are able to self-regulate one another. How does my neighbor keep their donkey? So they're able to look at one another in that way. And so we are hoping that could be a way that now can help us to really reduce even the emergence of the illegal trade that may be coming up in some of the areas.
Most of the country, as I mentioned previously, that have a substantial population of donkeys, have all of them experience this donkey skin trade, and all of them have put a measure in place to stop. Let me put it to ban the trade of donkey skin. Because during my introduction, I said, and this is natural law, any species that is overexploited uh, is at risk, will lead to the extinction of the species.
A few years back, World Organization for Animal Health, working with Brook, rallied member countries on the continent here, and the issue was brought at the global level, and we developed the standards for working equines, which includes also the donkeys. So, as I said before, we are a standard setting organization. We want to provide leadership on the best practice on how to address animal welfare standards. And these standards are actually not just arbitrarily developed, they are science-based. Science-based. And they are the minimum standard that any country should be able to apply. And they usually are developed through a process that's very transparent and that culminates in the general session in May of each year to either review the standard or put or develop or accept a new standard. And once they have been developed and accepted and published, then all member countries are bound to follow them.